Hey kids, it's time for Pizza and Pop Culture with our Rogues Gallery of Talent. Coming at you on location from Eastside Pizza in Wallingford, Connecticut. Now serving up geek pizza with extra cheese.
Hello and welcome to yet another lockdown edition of Pizza and Pop Culture. And guys, this is cool because we actually have one of the pizza guys here this time. So it really counts as a Pizza and Pop Culture episode. We have Angelo, Alexopoulos back finally with us after a long hiatus.
What's going on, everybody?
Along with him, of course, is Peter Bradley in Moe's Tavern. You can't see it, but on Zoom, he's sitting in Moe's Tavern.
Why, hello, everyone.
Next to him, we have the lovely and talented Jude Breidenbach.
Hey, hope everybody's staying safe.
And of course, our co-pilot, Shitty Beef himself, Alan Spaulding.
Hi there.
Ooh, I like that. James Earl Jones.
Oh, my.
Before we get going, let's do a little housekeeping here. Remind everyone to follow us on pizzapopculture.com. That's our new website. You can also find us on social media, Facebook and Twitter at Pizza Pop Culture. And it would be great if you'd hit the little subscribe button on your podcast listening device of choice and to grow our show. And or if you feel so inclined, if you're visiting our website, there's a little support the show button. You just click that. You can give us a little bit of financial contribution. It would go a long way into making the show bigger and better. All right?
We have this addiction to food and shelter we can't seem to kick.
Yeah. And we might have none of that soon.
I love that.
I think we need can we get a mascot like Pizza the Hut?
We should get a mascot.
We need like a mascot for the podcast.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, since we're all complaining about being stuck in our homes and having to deal with this situation for how many weeks now? 7, 8?
God.
Just about.
Yeah, too many. Just curious. To go over the little quarantine playlist that you guys have assembled. What are you guys watching? What are you guys listening to? What are you guys reading? That sort of thing.
I've been watching a lot of original Star Trek. Even though I've seen them so many times, for some odd reason, at the end of the night, I retire to, I don't know, just watching more Star Trek. I just got done watching Cat's Paw the other night, which was one of my favorite episodes.
For real? You're
Really?
being sincere
I
about
love that episode.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a big horror fan. So back in the day, when I was watching it, I was thinking about it. Back in the day, that must have really been kind of scary for television, for, TV back then. I mean, it had a lot of different elements that, like, were from, like, Macbeth and, like, scary, spooky horror. I don't know, at the time, movies, I guess. I mean, I don't know. It's not scary now, but I can imagine back then watching it. I don't know. Is everybody familiar with that show?
Oh, the episode.
Let's just say for a second that one of us wasn't.
It started getting kind of quiet. I was like, anybody want to?
I think we're all in stunned disbelief that you liked that episode.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I don't know. I mean, that goes up there with Spock's father being the ambassador there, that episode where...
A Journey to Babel is a great episode.
Yes. Where, it's like a murder mystery almost, like whodunit, where they find that alien species, I forgot the name of it.
Orions.
Yeah, dead in one of the...
the Tellarite is dead in the turbo in the Jeffries tube there. Yeah,
that's right. In the Jeffries tube.
Yeah, that's right.
And Spock's father's the main suspect because...
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's neat about that episode is that they can't lie. So, Spock's pretty much saying, yeah, my dad probably did do it. Because how he died was like some kind of like compression to the neck.
Yeah.
So it was, reflective of the Vulcan neck pinch. So they said, well, he had to die this way. So it was a cool, like, whodunit,
That episode has one of my favorite Captain Kirk moments when he comes back to the bridge and he's not ready to sit in command, and he's like, "Get out, Spock."
yeah. But
yeah, I've been binging Star Trek of all flavors as well. So, Angelo, what about you?
I've talked about this before with you guys, and I'm not a streaming person, but I do subscribe to the Criterion channel, and they have a plethora of noir films from the 40s and 50s, and I just finished watching a Humphrey Bogart noir I'd never even heard of before called Dead Reckoning, which was pretty good. It's got all the elements of the dialogue and the cinematography and whatnot, but the Criterion Channel for me has been, a little bit of solace in this kind of a crazy time we're living in at the moment.
Pete?
Well, I have been indulging in Star Trek Deep Space Nine on the BBC.
Oh, bravo.
They were running Voyager for God knows how long, and there's only just so much of that I can take. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But as of the beginning of the year, they switched it all over to Deep Space Nine, and they've already gone through this series maybe 3 or 4 times at this point. But every Monday and Tuesday, I don't miss Deep Space Nine.
Nice. I love Deep Space.
And it was one of these shows that I wasn't really into when it first aired. It was the first couple of seasons was the same basic flavor as Next Generation, but who's the guy in the funny makeup and just, this person's always complaining and what's with the Ferengi and who cares? So I didn't really give it a chance when it first came out, but now that I can check it out again, I'm really appreciating it.
Yeah, same here. I didn't like it when it came out either, but
I wasn't a big fan of Deep Space Nine either, but I gotta do a rewatch. I just haven't really gotten there yet. I've watched some episodes, but I think some of the characters never really grew on me. But I don't know. I just have to go revisit.
Oh, you should, because they're all very well written. I mean, it takes them a while to find their footing, but that was the same thing with Next Gen too. Is season 3 they finally caught their stride, and these things were fully formed characters. They're all really well written, although I do skip over the Ferengi episodes.
Oh, I do the Ferengi episodes. I think what's great is every character on the show has an arc. Even some of the secondary and tertiary characters all have an arc because the show was serialized. So you're going on this 7-season journey with these people, and everything dovetails into everything else, and it's just amazing. I mean, they have supporting characters like the first officer of the Cardassian fleet ends up with a great story by the end. So it's well worth watching, and you got to watch it in order. You can't just drop in like Star Trek: The Next Generation or Voyager or any of the other ones. You can just grab an episode and watch it, and you're fine. This is totally different. You have to watch them in order.
And that's where I think I haven't gotten there yet, because I've only watched them sporadically, and I don't think I've actually absorbed the whole thing as a whole, which means I need to do.
Well, my quarantine list is almost the same. I mean, so like I said, it's all the Star Treks. It's James Bond movies.
Amazing. Everybody's Star Trek, huh?
James Bond, Quentin Tarantino, Star Trek. That's about it. Reading some comics.
I did see for the first time, and I don't know why, it was on Netflix, and I decided to watch Urban Cowboy with John Travolta.
Hey, I like that movie.
I got that one beat.
You had a beat?
Yeah, I actually was flipping around the other day and saw John Travolta in The Boy in the Plastic Bubble.
Ooh. Wow. How was that?
Just as horrific as I remember it.
That was a TV film, though, right? I mean, he did that right after, right between probably Saturday Night Fever and he did Carrie first, right?
I believe he did do Carrie.
He did Carrie first before he did Saturday Night Fever. That's right. Okay.
The Plastic Bubble was dated 77, so.
Okay.
I felt like he could have kept going. I mean, he's definitely a good. Back then, I think he was definitely starting off really, really good as an actor. I mean, I loved him in Pulp Fiction, but after, I don't know, I can't. There was a science fiction movie called, God, I can't remember the name of it.
Battlefield Earth?
Yes, Battlefield Earth. And oh my God, how did that make it to the silver screen? Oh.
He's been.
That was a pet project of his, wasn't it?
Was it? Was it his?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it was. It was.
L. Ron Hubbard, who founded Scientology, wrote that book.
Right.
And he's a Scientologist, a famous Scientologist, so it was kind of, mandated that you must do this movie.
It was the Scientologist 10 Commandments in his brain, anyway.
Yeah, and then recently, I guess he played in a really low budget film where he plays this neurotic, crazy fan or something, and he stalks some kind of some actor or something. And
what is it? Is it called The Fanatic or The Fan or
something
like that?
I think it's called
The Fanatic.
And people said it's cringy to watch, but it's a great movie, but it's a great bad movie. So I haven't seen it, but it's gotten
I've seen clips from it.
Cult following.
And Yeah, it's one of these so bad it's good, but I tend to think more of it so bad it's bad type of movies. But yeah, I've seen clips from it, and it is
Keith,
wow.
you were nodding your head like you saw it.
No, I've seen clips because I think Red Letter Media did a review of it. But
That's where I saw it.
But I was going to say, and Angelo knows the story too, that Travolta seems to have a history of just picking bad projects. He's a really good actor. He just picks the wrong projects. He almost said no to Get Shorty.
He almost said, I think Broken. Well, after he did Pulp Fiction, he got in the script for Broken Arrow that John Woo did, and Quentin's like, you got to do this movie, and he did, and he almost, like you said, he almost passed on Get Shorty, and he did that as well because Quentin's like, no, you have to do this movie, and those are really good. He had a little run there, after Pulp Fiction, he has some great roles, and then all of a sudden it just kind of, died down again for him.
I mean, he plays the villain in The Punisher, and it's awful. He's just so miscast,
But I mean, yeah, you're right.
Should be his agent. I don't know.
Yeah,
because the guy cannot pick a good project.
But wasn't he? Who did he play in the O.J. Simpson made-for-TV? I heard he was actually pretty good in that, and that was actually a pretty good project. But I didn't see any of it. So
Shapiro.
Okay.
He played John Gotti too, didn't he?
Yeah. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he did.
Yes, he did, Pete.
he was in. Yeah, he was good in Swordfish, though. I think he wasn't bad in that. And that was actually back in the day. That was one of those. That's when Hackers was actually. If you were a hacker, you were like cool. And there was a bunch of movies around that time. I think that were about hackers. And
Properly, he's fine. He's a really good actor.
No, he is. No, I agree with you. I agree with you, Keith. You're right. It's just the project that he picks. Yeah.
Yeah, or sometimes he's just miscast. I mean, he should have never been heavy in The Punisher. He's so whiny.
But going back and watching, Saturday Night Fever, right? And, Urban Cowboy. Back then these movies were, obviously they were popular then, especially with. Yes, there was a resurgence in country music. I guess I don't know. He obviously brought some of those stars to the pop. I guess like Bonnie Raitt and a couple other country.
Oh, that were in the film. That's right.
Right.
In the film. Yeah.
And but it was a great movie, and the character actually and the villain in it was really good too.
Scott Glenn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He really played a good bad guy.
Yeah.
So I mean, hey, listen, it was worth a watch. I don't know. It's one of those things. If you go through Netflix, you can't find anything to watch. It's done well.
John Travolta.
My mom's movies, but
John Travolta did Carrie. He did Saturday Night Fever. He did Grease. He did Urban Cowboy. He did Blowout. Within 5 or 6 years, and those are all very good films. So.
And then he did Staying Alive, right?
Staying Alive. That was Sylvester Stallone's, I think, directorial debut, right? I believe.
So. Yeah.
And that came out.
Right.
I think it came out in the mid or like early part of the 1980s, and it just didn't do that well. And he also did that film with Jamie Lee Curtis that didn't do well either. So, Perfect, I think it's called. I'm not entirely sure of the name of the film, and then that was it until Pulp Fiction came out. So
yeah.
The
problem is that
he did The 3 Men and a Baby, right? Or no, was it Look Who's Talking?
No, Look
Who's Talking.
Kirstie Alley.
Yeah, Look Who's Talking. Yeah.
Was it Kirstie Alley?
Kirstie Alley. Yeah.
Yes.
The problem is there's just Netflix. They try to make good quality movies, but they just a lot of them are unforgettable. So I just keep going back to classics. I try.
There's a podcast for you, Jude. It's called Nomcast. Netflix original movies, Nomcast. You should listen to that.
I don't think. I mean, the original movies. I mean, I think Bird Box was an original one, but besides that, I don't think there's anything that I've actually watched that Netflix has produced that it's been memorable. And that's a whole nother topic of discussion, whether there's quality over quantity, But
well, isn't The Irishman their film though?
Yes.
Right.
And it's got terrible reviews. Some people give it terrible reviews.
I mean, I enjoyed the film. I think it might have been a little bit overpraised, just a little bit. It is long. It's 3.5 hours. Sit down and watch it. Tell me, guys, what you guys think about the film.
Yeah, I have yet to watch it.
I have yet to watch it because I heard it was not that good. Even though
I also have yet to watch it.
Yeah. I mean, Scorsese's name is all over it, but I think I'm getting tired of those gangstery type of movies. I don't know.
I'd like to say I wish I had the time, but I can't use that excuse.
You just don't want to see it.
No, I do. I just keep forgetting about it, to be honest, because I don't stream that much. I pull, if you can see Angelo right now, and you will on our social media, The Blu-rays behind him. I pull stuff off the shelf. I once in a while I'll stream, but all my stuff I like optical. It looks better. It sounds better.
It's funny you say that, Keith, because when the whole quarantine thing started, I went to do a Target run, and I went in there looking for some things, and I went in the back to pick up a couple of Blu-rays, and they were like kind of wiped out, and I was like, wow, this is interesting. What's going on over here? Is it because of the pandemic? And sure enough, I think I sent you that link recently where sales of Blu-rays have gone up like 30-40% within the last 3 or 4 weeks, and it has to do with what's going on, which is great, Yeah,
and the players, you get the players; they're all gone.
And those are all gone too. Yeah, yep.
Nice to see. I guess people have realized that the inventory on the streaming sites is very limited.
It is limited. Yeah.
Anything else you guys want to add? We got about a minute and a half left here. You want to throw something else out there?
I just want to say too that I was telling Keith this the other day. I don't know how you guys feel about what's going on, but I think I can sum it up like this: George Orwell and Franz Kafka got together and wrote a book. Okay, it became a bestseller. They wanted to make it into a film. They had Rod Serling write the script, but they got Ed Wood to direct the movie. And that's how I feel what's going on in society right now. That's how I feel society is at the moment, okay?
Yeah, that is beautiful, man. Wow. That is awesome. Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, and the book sales of 1984 have actually escalated during this as well. So.
Yeah.
Have they?
Yes, they have.
I didn't know that. I learned something today.
That was a great metaphor there, Angelo.
Yeah, you can't beat that metaphor. That's really good.
All right, I guess that's about it for this segment. We will take a short break. We'll come back. Alan will be rejoining, and I will be ducking out. We'll return in 1 minute or less even.
It was the three-legged dog of comics.
It was bad.
These two gentlemen met in jail, and then when they got out, they started publishing.
It should have been mobsters instead of doing what they're doing in comics.
Management there was questionable at times.
Some of it has to do with people who go to jail.
We are sinners. We have corrupted the youth.
Stuff that should never have been sold to kids.
And then there was Charlton. I couldn't quite tell what they were doing.
Charlton was just a hodgepodge of weird titles.
What is this? Who am I dealing with?
John threw nickels around like they were manhole covers.
CATAP. They were cheap.
Hell yes, they're cheap.
They were a special kind of special is what they were.
Critic was horrible.
You could smell them beginning to decay even as they were rolling off the press.
At one point, they actually did have to move the comics operation into a bowling alley.
It's something out of a sitcom.
We want to publish comic books in the worst way, and they did.
It's been called the street-fighting cousin of Marvel and DC. Maybe you've heard of them. Probably not. But you do know the industry legends that called it home. This is Charlton Comics. Follow at charltonmovie.com.
Oh, it's going to suck.
And we are back. Pizza and Pop Culture, episode 5. 5 episodes. We're doing this. We didn't give up. Not yet, anyway.
Not yet.
So anyway, if you guys out there are thinking that maybe you're tired of listening to that same commercial for the Charlton Comics movie over and over on every episode, and you'd rather hear something about your business, we have space for lease. Just hit us up, pizzapopculture@gmail.com, or you can just get us through the website. There's a contact sheet or social media at Twitter, at Facebook, at Pizza Pop Culture. So this segment, I'm going to take a little breather on because I'm always blathering on this stupid thing. And maybe we'll get more listeners if I'm not on. So
you had Mexican food, right, Keith?
I did have Mexican food. Release the Kraken.
Right.
So I'm going to duck out, and it's going to be Alan, Pete, Angelo, and Jude talking about mass gatherings post-COVID. Go.
Okay. So maybe I should kick this off since I was the one who was talking about this earlier. So I think I told you guys out of the podcast that the San Diego Comic-Con is still on. If anybody's excited about Comic-Cons, I guess San Diego and New York are the biggest ones. But in a video announcement, what's that?
They're full on, or are they going?
So here's the thing. San Diego Comic-Con released that they will be doing some video for everybody to watch to feel like you're attending the event. They actually did a little teaser video online where they joked and said that you can enjoy the Comic-Con from your home, free parking, comfy chairs, personalized snacks, no lines, pets welcome, badges for all, and front row seats to Comic-Con in your house. So basically, it's billed as every fan's love for San Diego Comic-Con minutes the hassle of navigating the huge event. Information is sparse at this point, but it's good to know that Comic-Con will exist in some form this year. Expect to see at least some of the actors from the MCU, DC TV, and other fan favorites who conduct panels virtually. However, owing to the movies and TV production shutdowns, some of these big reveals and trailer debuts may be put on hold until later in the year. So the San Diego Comic-Con has not made any official announcements, but they're thinking maybe they might do some access exclusive content for people who have paid for the passes and aren't going to the event, but we're going to find out. And if you already bought a pass, you can refund it. Otherwise, you can wait till next year, July 2021.
Wow, you've got the scoop down on that.
Yeah, you did that all from memory too. Wow, I'm really impressed.
Right. Yeah.
Jude, I play World of Warcraft, and BlizzCon is their annual large gathering event. It occurs in November, and they have been doing a similar thing for a really long time. They partner with DirecTV, and if you can't, they have a limited number of tickets that they can sell, and they always sell out literally in like 5 minutes on the 2 dates that they sell them. So I've been able to go 3 times, maybe 4 times in the 15 years I've been playing World of Warcraft, which is really cool because
So wait, so my questionality: do you show up as your avatar in?
No.
You guys go to a place like a hub?
No, but a lot of people do. They put a lot of money in their cosplay action.
Right.
I'm a sleek, magical female who uses arcane powers, and I'm a big hairy doofus in real life, so I can't fit the costume. But my point is that they've been doing that, what you're talking about, for a while. Partner with DirecTV, you can watch it virtually. It's not the same as being there. Not gonna lie here, but it is an option.
But I think it's obviously these Comic-Cons are sort of a central place for anybody that's into any type of pop culture to attend. And again, you can go there and you're gonna be able to, meet up with anybody that's into anything, even if it's super obscure in pop culture or any, even if it's a comic book that obviously isn't a popular one, you can find somebody that reads that comic. But this is great for people who need their fix, their Comic-Con fix, and if you don't want to deal with the cosplayers and the crowds and the smelly people, you're fine. I was going to say smelly nerds, but I could be a smelly nerd.
Aren't we all?
No, I can't be a smelly nerd. I'm a clean nerd. But anyway, so I don't know. For some people, I think that's kind of interesting. I know that's probably going to evolve into other types of events, maybe sporting events. I know we were talking about that.
Sports, that's a big deal for people. I mean, I'm not a big sports fan, but there's a lot of, everything is like canceled and rescheduled and shut down. The one thing I saw recently is that they're going to start doing some NASCAR races again. So that'll be coming back. And that seems to be a no-brainer in more ways than one. Left Turn University is that, you can be in those cars. You don't necessarily need, as long as they crash, that's what people want to say.
Now, are there going to be spectators at this NASCAR event?
I don't know. I can't imagine if there would be.
Holographic.
We got a lot of people. We got others. We got Keith, and we got other people just nodding. They're just waving their heads. No spectators.
I follow Formula One, and they've delayed the season because they should have been started just like NASCAR. And I think their first race is sometime at the end of this month or the beginning of next month, but I think no spectators are going to be there. So I think they're all going to be following suit. There's going to be no I think in South Korea, they're playing baseball without fans in the stand.
Wow.
They've already started.
Surreal.
Well, if my colleagues look at their, we got some inspiration here from the sports gods in our chat dialogue that we got going on. And one thing that we know is that, or we think is that the NFL, we expect that might be played on time this year. I don't know about the fan situation, but that might roll out. I'm a Cowboys fan. I follow the Cowboys and the Eagles.
You follow two teams from the same division?
Yeah, because because as a kid, well, that's really
they
hurtful.
hate each other,
That's
don't they? I'm sorry, Alan, but it's true though. I mean, they're in the. I would never follow the Ravens. I'm a Steelers fan. I would never follow the Ravens, the Bengals, or the Browns.
But I also like the Packers. The problem is this. Here's the problem. I'll explain it to you in a nutshell in 30 seconds.
Okay.
I grew up in the mid-Atlantic states. So the Eagles, the Phillies, those were all my teams just because I lived there. But then I saw Roger Staubach and Tom Landry and Too Tall Jones, and I saw those guys playing. I'm like, man, I like that star on, and the uniform looked good, and everybody seemed to hate the Dallas Cowboys. So I love them. And plus, Roger Staubach is just about one of the greatest quarterbacks I've ever seen play. And then my stepfather is from Wisconsin. So he loves the Green Bay Packers. So I kind of have to root for them a little bit. So that's why it's all about that.
Interesting.
I know that you were saying earlier that the UFC is actually doing they're doing matches already, right?
I heard about that.
About that, right?
But and apparently one of the first live events at full contact, and it was massively attended apparently on televised. A lot of
I think that's the way everything's going to be. Like I was saying this before, I think they're going to actually start a lot of sporting events and have them televised without an audience. I know that'd be kind of weird, but then again, like I said, they are doing tests now where it's easy to detect COVID-19 by your saliva. So I'm assuming a lot of players will get tested before they go on field, and maybe if it's a 3-game series in a weekend or something, or 2-game for baseball, you just got to pretty much stay quarantined to play.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you're making enough money, so it's okay not to see your kids and your wife maybe for 2 days.
I read somewhere, Jude, and guys that, again, I'm not a sports guy, but something about an 82-game length season for baseball. Lots of rule changes and lots of stadium stuff happening. I can't imagine going to a stadium to watch a sporting event in this climate, though. What would happen? I mean,
well, isn't that how they traced what happened in Italy and Spain? Why the outbreaks were so huge was from a soccer match.
Right.
A team from Spain went to Italy. This is early on to play. One of the Italian teams there, and it, somebody had it spread like wildfire in the stadium, and then the Spaniards went back to Spain. The Italians, whatever, and then they kind of traced it back to that soccer match, which is why they had such a huge outbreak at the very beginning.
That really sucks. That's a true shame. But one thing that's not a shame is that we didn't have that crazy March Madness. I'm sorry, guys. Basketball drives me nuts. It just never ends. It just starts, and then basketball. Every time I look at Facebook, basketball, we're having the playoffs. Now we're in the semi-playoffs. Now we're in the alternate semifinal playoffs. It just never ends. I can't stand the basketball season. But I did read someplace that they took some steps to go back to normal in some small ways, right? Does anybody else hear this about having some isolated and random practices in some places for their teams?
Well,
that's not going to come back till next year.
I'm assuming they're under some type of contract, so they're not going to just be laying around. They're going to probably be still training, right? I mean, these people are getting paid how much?
Millions of dollars to games.
I mean, and they're athletes. It's not like, it's like, Jesus, we can put you to work if you're not doing anything. You're an athlete. You're in better condition than most people. Yeah, it is kind of weird, especially with baseball, because I'm a big baseball fan. And, I know you guys like going to see the local teams, like Yard Goats, right?
Yep.
Is that what it is? And that was sort of like a summer thing to do. And of course, as the summer is approaching, I mean, 4th of July, I'm actually curious to know how people are going to want to watch fireworks. I mean, that's a huge thing for some people to go meet up every single year somewhere to watch fireworks on July 4th.
Well,
that's a bummer for me. Because
it's a bummer for me because I saw all that food at that Yard Goats game. I don't know what's going on in baseball, but I'm like, holy hell, look at this. This is great. But let me give you some facts that the sports gods have passed along. Now, this is how it stands right now. We'll see what's going on. But As far as the NBA goes, we got the league is still aiming to hold a best of 7 playoff series, and that should resume, and they should start playing without fans, and that's obviously a possibility. The Hockey League cancels the remainder of the season and playoffs due to the coronavirus. That's already happened. What happens in the future? What do you guys think? Hockey is a big thing going on in Connecticut.
Sports is a big moneymaker, so I can only imagine.
Well, I hear that the NHL is trying to come back.
Yeah.
Right.
The AHL is down. That's all the information I've got.
And I'm just
reading the teleprompter.
Right. Let me clarify something. We're all a bunch of geeks and nerds, and the one guy that knows about sports, he's in the can having a problem because of the Mexican food. He's in the can. Are you back yet, Keith? Is he back? Get on the headset, man. So talk about some sports shit. Holy
He's
hell.
back. He's got some toilet paper hanging out, but he's back.
What's wrong? What's the matter?
We're talking about sports, and the only guy in the whole geek squad here that knows about sports is you.
Oh, that's not true. I just sent you guys all that info.
Yeah, but you heard how that came out. You heard how that happened. Fans, Keith Larsen is really, really knowledgeable about sports, but I'm not.
Well, what's the primary question?
What the fuck is going on in sports world?
Well, no one really knows, you know.
Yeah.
The American Hockey League, the AHL, shut down this week. They're a minor league league. They supply the players to the NHL. You know, it's a breeding ground, if you will, or a training ground, and young players get their skills sharpened, and then they go to the pros. So they're done. The NHL, I don't know how they're going to figure it out because they have a lot of international players. So you might have
I never thought about
deal
that.
with and things like that. Baseball right now is the benefit of the calendar. So if they can figure out a way to keep the players safe, they should start soon. And football really has the benefit of the calendar right now.
Yep.
If you're asking me, I think the NHL and the NBA should just bag it.
For this year.
Yeah. It's almost June. Just bag it.
Yeah,
Forget
please.
it and put all your energy into, because they start again in training camp in September. So
I'm curious to know how these contracts are being paid, though. I mean, are these players taking?
They're being prorated.
You think so?
Yeah. No, they are. They are.
Wow.
Teams like today, the Florida Marlins let go of 40% of their staff. This is hurting everybody. So.
Yeah, definitely.
When I don't know. I think the testing will be huge. I mean, if you can get the testing down, and Jude, you brought up this new thing that you heard from Yale about the saliva testing. That would be you could do that in the morning from home.
I think that should be with a lot of things. I think that should be included in one of the phases. I don't know. Everybody's talking about these phases. You know, phase 1, phase 2, and then phase 3. But I think for certain jobs where it requires more than, I don't know, maybe a dozen people. I mean, obviously for baseball and football, it's more than that. But what I'm trying to say, if it's a smaller controlled group, why not do testing before they initiate some type of activity? I mean, you don't need to bring in audience. People will still tune in and watch because everybody still wants to support their team.
Yeah, but eventually the economy is going to drive a crowd. You've got concession workers that are out of work. You've got parking lot of
definitely
security guards. These are people who need to get back to work too.
Ticket sales and parking and all that stuff that supports the community. And you know what, too, you bring up a good point that ties us back to our, pop culture stuff, is that what I've seen a lot, I don't watch it, obviously, a lot of re-televised sporting events that, that have occurred. And there's a lot of classic stuff out there. I mean, of course, a lot of cable companies have their local teams on, like, what do we have? The Yankees Classic around here and stuff like that.
Yeah, Nesson. I mean, there's a lot of sports networks up here, especially in New England.
Ever since the pandemic started, at least a couple weeks into it, I should say, since all the sports stuff got shut down, ABC has been showing like classic basketball NBA Finals games, and we also benefit from the fact that it's kind of weird timing that the Michael Jordan Bulls documentary on ESPN has been drawing record numbers, and it's called The Last Dance. And if you guys are Jordan fans or Bull fans or whatever, if you haven't watched it, watch it, because it's 10 hours The last 2 episodes are going to air this coming Sunday, and so far it's been really good. So
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't hear about that. But that's cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, going back to like I said, public events, even with because I know a lot of our listeners are probably con goers, but even small cons. I don't know how this is going to affect people's local cons. And maybe that could be another episode. But
bringing it around and trying to figure out what's going on in the world of sports, how it relates to our world situation right now, and how it relates to pop culture,
Right.
which is obviously our strengths and stuff.
I mean, there's some people out there that
what are we missing? What are we not talking about?
Well, I was just going to say, when Keith and I we used to go to a lot of cons to, obviously we used to go to the Rhode Island one. I think we went to the one up in Boston. And, it's just interesting to see all these small vendors. And I'm curious to know how these small vendors are going to survive without getting income from these cons, these people who just solely sell comic books and memorabilia and action figures and stuff like that. I mean, these people really rely on those cons to pay their bills for the year. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they have small shops, but that is a little concerning,
and think about all the arts. I mean, and music, Angelo and Pete. I've got a friend who is the executive director of an international ballet company, and they're dead in the water because they get, even though they're a nonprofit, and they're a huge company, they get their revenue from ticket sales primarily. Donations, yes. Think about artists, and a lot of musicians have been doing stuff virtually to share their talent and inspire others and check in. But I mean,
right, but if you have product, if you actually are sitting on product, like actual product that you sell, how do you get rid of that? I mean, you got different sources, different places to go, like eBay and maybe Facebook Marketplace. I can imagine when a person works a con, they pretty much at the end of the con are just discounting stuff just to get rid of stuff and get rid of product. So now a lot of these people probably have like basements or storage units just filled with stuff that they can't get rid of. That's scary to me. But then again, you have to adapt. Maybe they opening up an online store, and I don't know. I don't know how to do it. I don't have that.
Yeah, maybe it's time to do some early Christmas shopping.
And do people have money? That's the problem. So, it is interesting. But again, to go back to this whole Comic-Con thing, I'm interested to seeing some panels. I'm interested to see what the MCU is drumming up. I'm interested to see what new movies might be in the future, and maybe seeing some of our favorite Avengers on a panel or something. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Anything like
I'm
that.
tuning in.
Hey,
so.
any final words on this really interesting and important discussion?
I have. I'm popping back in for the wrap here. Jude and I have tickets to see Kiss on September 5th.
Oh yeah.
They better have that show.
That's funny.
Actually, I think if they can do the saliva test, then I think everything will go back quick. If you know.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading a little bit on the research of it this afternoon, but yeah, if they could just swab your mouth, and I don't know how quick those tests are, but.
And don't forget,
5 minutes.
We were walking around for probably 60 days with this thing out there, not realizing it anyway. So,
right.
Well, I did read online too that a lot of employers, even though they're letting some employees back, they're trying to limit the actual. I mean, I don't know if this is a sign of discrimination, but they're trying to say if you're 65 or older, don't bother coming back to work.
No, elderly people are. There's no doubt, elderly people are at high risk for this.
Very high risk.
I don't know if 65 is considered elderly, but I'm just saying, some people who.
In this case, it could be a death sentence, which
it could be
want.
Right.
Yeah. Real quick on our way out, Sweden never did any kind of lockdowns or never closed their economy. They left things going, but they limited crowd sizes to 50, and they made sure seniors 60 and up stayed home. So that's the way they handled it. All right, so let's come back with our third segment, which will be a lot more fun than all this doom and gloom. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. This will be a kind of a shotgun finale here. We're going to talk about a pop culture event, whether it's a movie, TV show, book, record, album, concert, maybe you want to, that resonated with you through your entire life. and maybe even set you on a career path. Who wants to go first? Who? Don't all jump at once.
I mean,
all right, Jude, go first.
Well, there's a few movies that have inspired me through over the years to do what I do for a living, but I can't say there was just one particular movie. But really, what did it was Clerks. But back then, you didn't have YouTube, you didn't have the internet. So when you saw somebody actually produce something of low budget that was written well, it was funny at the time, kind of, was kind of crass. The humor was really crass, and of course some of the
37.
Yeah,
37.
Guy,
in a row.
In a row. Don't suck any to the way to the parking lot. But anyway, yeah. I mean, for me, back in the day, going to a video store, like I used to work at a coffee house, and there was a Tommy K video right next to the coffee house, and going in there and talking to the people that work there about just kind of cult movies that these people on a shoestring budget released, and it got picked up by somebody and got released to video and was distributed through rental. That was big back in the day. If one of your movies got out there and just got passed along by word of mouth, that was kind of a big deal. And Clerks kind of was that for me. It was like, holy crap. So you mean to tell me that you can get a film camera, just a beat up film camera and a small crew, and actually do a movie that might make it to the masses, as opposed to just never going anywhere? So pre-internet, pre-YouTube, that was a big deal. And I know now if a movie like that was released, it probably would not have made an impact at all, sadly, if you think about it, because it's everything on YouTube now is so oversaturated, anybody can put up anything. But if you think about it, if Clerks was released today, would it just been, Kevin Smith would have never really made it. It was just the right time period. So Clerks for me, for my career, I think that kind of was an influential thing. I mean, obviously I could just talk about Star Wars, about how that just blew me away as a child, and of course I had every single toy, Kenner toy, that I could scream and yell and beg my dad to buy me. But I think for me, Clerks definitely was an impact. I don't know if any, you guys agree, because I know you're all at the same kind of age, and we all do sort of the same thing. So I mean, but for me, I don't know if that's but for career wise, I guess that was a big thing for me. I was kind of mildly obsessed with the film.
It's a good one.
Cool.
You were also, right?
Yeah, good one.
Yeah.
Next, Angelo.
For me, it would have to be Star Wars. I mean, I know, like Jude said, he blew me away as a kid. Same with me. I was 8 at the time, and it was just this juggernaut that just didn't stop. I mean, we didn't get Empire for another 3 years, but I didn't think even when Star Wars initially came out, we had any idea there was going to be a sequel. I mean, I know wasn't really thinking about that, and then when Star Wars came out, we didn't have Episode 4 at the beginning of the title crawl. It was just Star Wars. The crawl came up, and that was it, But that movie stuck with me, even though I was a fan of Star Trek probably at the age of 4 or 5. So I've been a fan of Star Trek longer, but Star Wars was something that just blew everybody out of the water. I mean, that film just I listened to an interview with William Friedkin, and he was talking about when he released the film Sorcerer, and Grauman's Theater in Los Angeles took Star Wars out to show his film. He had just done The Exorcist, and that was his film that came out after the fact. After that, it closed after a week, and that's a very good movie. And they put Star Wars back in after a week. They took that Star Wars out, then they put it back in. So, for me, Star Wars, the lunchboxes and the figures, and it was just that movie for me. I wanted to become a writer or a filmmaker at the age of 8 because of Star Wars. And to this day, I watch it and it's great, even though it's changed dramatically since the initial 1977 release. Why on God's green earth they added McClunky into the film, I have no idea. I picked up they released it on 4K about a month or so ago, and I picked it up and it looks amazing. But that's in there. The new effects are in there, which the new effects are great. Don't get me wrong, but is there any way we can get the original cut of the film on on some kind of physical media or even streaming, whatever, just so we can watch it again?
I agree. Come on, just give us the theatrical versions. And I want, for A New Hope, I want it to be just Star Wars on that title crawl.
Right. I saw an interview with Patton Oswalt, and he screened a print of the original Star Wars without the episode 4. How he got a print of it, I have no idea. But he showed it to his kids, and his kids loved it. This is the original effects, the original everything. Everything is from 1977. And I saw an interview with George Lucas saying something to the effect that the original elements are gone. I just find that hard to believe. I don't believe that for a minute. I just don't. I know he's an artist. He wants to tinker and change things around, and I get it. But at the same time, it's like, dude, just release it. Your fans will thank you for the rest of your life, for our lives. If you could just release the original cut of the film.
I concur. Pete, what about you, man?
Yes. Okay, I can't necessarily. What was that?
Don't say Star Wars.
I'm not going to say Star Wars.
That's why I didn't say Star Wars. I was like, no.
I will say, however, the 1977 was definitely a banner year for corrupting little Peter Bradley's mind. Star Wars, of course. On March 15th of 1977 at 9 o'clock p.m., my parents let me stay up extra late that evening because John Belushi was hosting the NBC world premiere of Godzilla vs. Megalon.
Nice.
And I wouldn't say that Godzilla has informed my career in any stretch of the imagination, but I am definitely a lifelong Godzilla nerd thanks to them trying to they told me that there's going to be these scary monsters and I might have bad dreams, and oh boy did that completely backfire on them. So a lifetime of Godzilla toys and all the movies and cheering like a schoolgirl at the latest Godzilla movies in theaters and sobbing into my popcorn at the 1998 Godzilla movie. And oh yeah, Godzilla vs. Megalon, March 15th, 1977 at 9 o'clock p.m. on NBC. Changed my life.
That was my birthday, Pete. March 15th.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Happy birthday to you.
Nice. Okay.
I got a follow-up question for you. It's because I've known you now for almost 30 years. Is that what got you headed into the animation area? Because I know when I met you, you were heavy in well, you still are, but you've always been primarily an animator.
I genuinely don't know. I don't think I think somehow getting interested in special effects, definitely Godzilla had something to do with it, because there was men in suits, which absolutely fascinated me then. It fascinates me now. But I know that some of my early attempts at animation were definitely had to do with Godzilla. So I'm going to say yes. Yes, it did.
I got a question. This has always bothered me. Is Godzilla bad or is Godzilla good? Is he a hero or
it depends on the movie?
On the movie. Okay.
And it depends on the movie. In 1954, he was an allegory for the dropping of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. So he was most definitely the bad guy. By the time the 70s rolled around, as a matter of fact, 1964, they turned him into a good guy, and he was good all the way up through 1975. Then when they brought him back in 1984, he was a bad guy again, and then the Americans have turned him into a good guy. So the answer to your question, the long and short of it is yes and no.
He's like the Hulk. Sort of.
The most important question, Pete, is actually twofold. What is he to you?
What is he to me?
Good guy or bad guy?
Oh, he's much better when he's a bad guy. Better when he's a bad guy.
And is Godzilla a male or female?
King of the monsters, man.
Well, the Matthew Broderick one, he was a female. Or
Oh,
she was, whatever.
That's they never really told you in the Matthew Broderick one, but any movie where Godzilla's had a kid, it's always been adopted.
Pete, did you buy that mega box set from Criterion?
Not yet. But yeah, Criterion has the Showa era, 1954 to 1975, all on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
And not yet. It is on my Christmas list.
Perfect.
Shitty Beef, what about you?
Well, mine is a long and complicated story. No, just kidding. Growing up, only one parent, only my mom drove. So we didn't get to go to the movies very much because she worked all day and we couldn't go. So I was limited mostly to television, although I was there when Star Wars came out. And Angelo, you've missed us talking about that. It played at the Chestnut Hill Twin Cinema where I saw it for 54 weeks straight in both cinemas of a 2-cinema place. And it was an influential movie. But before that, for me, there are 4 things that I remember. I remember watching Star Trek. I remember watching Batman, of course, who is my superhero hero. I remember watching All in the Family. And the earliest one, which I saw in reruns, was Lost in Space. Lost in Space, I mean, the music of Lost in Space, the later music, the John Williams stuff, similar stuff, and the story, they all carried one theme for me. I wanted to be in control of a spaceship. So I would imagine myself sitting in front of this panel of buttons and levers and stuff. And then I realized it wasn't the spaceship that I was controlling. And what I wanted to do was be a special effects technician. That's what I kept telling everybody. I didn't know what it was called, but to me, a special effects technician was someone who could sit and push buttons and levers and dials and make all those things that I watched and loved happen on screen. And then All in the Family was just a great sitcom because I understood that it was live, and I understood that they were all acting in front of maybe 2 or 3 cameras, and they just had to do it and not make any mistakes.
Oh crap! It's my turn.
Don't say Star Wars.
Well,
Or Godzilla.
Star Wars, along with a combination of a lot of things, but Star Wars, sadly, I gotta say, it really just fired my imagination. Up to that point, I was like any other kid, addicted to baseball cards and riding my bike and hanging out and playing in the woods with my friends. And then Star Wars came. It got to a point where Angelo and I had a mutual friend in junior high. Mark Hatterick had an 8mm film camera, and we would go outside and animate the Star Wars figures and shoot them with lasers. And it took forever just to get a minute of playback, but it was just so much fun to experiment with that. And then from there it just snowballed. Indiana Jones came out and Terminator, and then in the mid 80s I found the Twilight Zone, and
oh yeah,
so it was just, I think a lot of that genre stuff just started piling up. Reading Spider-Man comics, and then I wanted to do nothing but draw for Marvel Comics. So though it took me until my early to mid 20s to figure out what I really was going to do when I grew up, that Star Wars just ignited that creative spark and changed my life completely. And I don't think there was a day that went by between 1979 or 80 to 1984-ish where we weren't reading Starlog cover to cover and talking about what was going on in Star Wars. So
I mean, growing up, I always thought my parents' generation was cowboys and Indians. Everybody wanted to play in the backyard and do cowboys and Indians. But when I was a kid, you wanted to either be Han Solo or Luke Skywalker.
Absolutely. That's absolutely true. And, I just wish, and I can't, much like you, Alan, my mom was divorced at a point in that time and working a lot. And, I was a latchkey kid with 2 siblings, and and I was raised kind of conservatively to, Hollywood's for the dreamers, and that's way far away, and you just have to get a job and stick with your job. And And unfortunately, I think that held me back a lot in my younger years. And I sometimes regret that. But, you make lemonade out of lemons, right? So you do what you can with what you got. But do I wish, maybe when I was younger, I figured out sooner what to do? Things would have been different, maybe. But then I wouldn't know you guys. So that's a loss.
We had a pool table in our basement. And it's only significant because to me it was a shuttlecraft. So I'd go down there with my brother and I'd try to bribe him to play, Star Trek with me. And I'd go and sit under the pool table, in that space that's underneath it. And I'd have him come down and sit with me. And I wanted to be Captain Kirk and he could be Mr. Spock, so I could, make it all happen and stuff. But he didn't want to be Mr. Spock. He wanted to be the fucking computer. I'm like, what do you mean you want to be the computer? What are you going to do? You just sit there. What am I supposed to do? Push buttons on your face?
Did he talk like Majel?
No, he didn't talk. He didn't want to. I don't know.
Working.
Being a dick.
Working.
Well, all of I mean, growing up in Connecticut, we used to have actual winters we don't have anymore. I think what do we have, 2.5 inches of snow total this year? And the temperature barely cracked below 40. But we used to have mega snow. We get feet of snow, and it would snow every couple days. And after Empire came out, how many Planet Hoth caves did you?
Oh yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
It was Planet Hoth, man. We used to dig these tunnels in my friend Colin's yard.
So when Return of the Jedi came out, I used to take my Huffy bike and drive through the woods with it before, I don't know, I guess mountain biking was big. And I used to pretend I was on a speeder bike.
Yeah.
until I hit a rock and flipped over and nearly killed myself. But my friend actually used to hide in the woods with a tennis ball and chuck it at me, and he was pretending that he was a stormtrooper or whatever. And and that was a game we used to play. We used to call it speeder bike, and we used to switch off. I used to hide in the woods and throw a tennis ball at him.
You know what all that required? Imagination.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Which,
I mean, you can only get so far with the 2600 before you just say, okay, I can't play this anymore. Let's go out and play.
Well, right. Now these kids get screens everywhere they turn, and the imagination is kind of manufactured for them.
You know what I'd like to hear, Keith? I'd like to hear from the folks listening to our podcast what inspired them. What pop culture thing has made a difference in their lives? Email it to us.
Alan with the call to action again. I love it.
Call to action. pizzapopculture@gmail.com.
Cool.
Well, I'm curious to see generational. I mean, Harry Potter for some. I mean, I know Alan, you're a big Harry Potter fan. I know Keith is too. But for somebody who was growing up in I guess when did Harry Potter come out? I want to say 1998.
90s, yeah.
So for a different generation, that's a huge big deal for them.
The books came out in the 90s. Yes.
Right.
Right. And the first film was 2001.
Right.
So to a different generation, Star Wars doesn't play a huge impact, but Harry Potter might. And so
or Lord of the Rings.
Right. And for younger kids, Avengers might do it now, those movies.
Right.
Sure.
So it is interesting to see the gap of what inspires a generation of kids on a pop culture level, I guess.
But that's an interesting thing you bring up, and forgive me for going this route. Maybe I know we don't have much time left, but is it pop culture only for now? I mean, maybe in 30 years when they talk about pop culture, they're still talking about this pop culture. Because think about it, this is our pop culture, but there was generations of people that came, I don't know, the Follies and silent films, but we don't think of that as pop culture. We think of that as just,
that's right.
Stuff. So maybe in the future, what we know as pop culture, these last few decades, maybe that will still be what people think about when they talk about pop culture in 30 or 40 years.
Definitely. Before we wrap up, Alan, since you had a call to action on this show, you also had one on our previous episode, and we got a response from a listener.
Oh, nice.
Yes. John Amenta, Wallingford, Connecticut, says he started reading. Actually, I will preface this by saying the question from Alan, or the call to action, was what comics are you reading and recommending to our audience? And he started reading Lazarus from Image Comics.
I love Image.
Great dystopian future story. Marvel's Conan run has been strong, and he's been reading the Doom Patrol Silver Age Omnibus, classic and fun. So that's from John Amenta in Wallingford, Connecticut. Thank you, John.
Yes.
for participating. So before we go, let's do Angelo's idea around the horn. What's one thing you recommend to everybody for the next 2 weeks to delve into?
Well, I'm going to stick with the Star Wars theme. And for May the 4th, Deutsche Grammophon put up a video on YouTube with John Williams conducting the Imperial March. You guys got to check it out if you haven't seen it yet, because it's just like outstanding. And right towards the end, I almost started to cry a little bit, because he the orchestra just was so into it. Just the last 30, 45 seconds, just like, I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I wish I was sitting in the audience watching John Williams conduct the Vienna Philharmonic play this piece, because it was just amazing. And I keep forgetting that John Williams lives like an hour away from us, and he's at, what is it? I can't think of the place where he conducts up in Massachusetts. It's in Lenox, Mass. I wish I can remember the names. Is it Great Woods?
No, it's
not Great Woods. I can't think of it, but he's there. He might be there. Maybe not this summer because of what's going on. But I mean, we should try to go see him conduct some of his music. I mean, that would be amazing.
Actually, last year I had a conflict of interest. I already had tickets to see Kiss on the same night he was there, and I was like,
"Oh, okay."
Pete, what do you recommend?
I'm going to recommend a movie by Akira Kurosawa called Rashomon. Basically, it's I'd like to say it's a murder mystery, but it's not a murder mystery. Somebody gets murdered, but you get to hear the same story told like 5 different times, from the man's point of view, from the woman's point of view, from the murderer's point of view, and from the murderee's point of view. It's an excellent film, and I can't recommend it enough, really.
Jude, what do you recommend?
This is actually a series on Netflix that I don't know if it's still on there, but I really, really, really enjoyed it. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but it's basically
not the Tiger King.
Listen, I got through that, and I don't even know why I watched it. It was terrible. It was so. I got done watching it. I was like, I just wasted how many hours of my life. But there's a great Netflix series called The Movies That Made Us. Has anybody here saw that?
Yeah.
Good call.
Absolutely effing brilliant. And it covers pretty much all the great 80s, I think, through 90 movies that, again, was inspirational for a lot of films based on those movies. And, of course, it's Ghostbusters. I think Dirty Dancing was one, Home Alone, and Die Hard. And it's done extremely well, and the interviews are all from the top actors. Dan Aykroyd. Die Hard had, I guess, the producers and directors of it, but it's just great. You got to see it. It's really done well.
It is really great series.
Yeah,
it's a sister series to The Toys That Made Us.
Oh, is it?
Which has 3 seasons. 2 are on Blu-ray already. Season 3 is still strictly Netflix.
Yeah, and it's really funny because when you watch it, a lot of these great movies like Dirty Dancing, Home Alone were pretty much movies that I don't even think they were going to be made. They weren't going to be even passed because the studios didn't think that they were good, and they became phenomenal.
Ended up being made by a porno studio here in Connecticut.
What? Oh, Dirty Dancing.
Yeah,
I know.
Vestron Video. Yeah,
right. So it's really great, and I recommend if you're a movie fan, track it down and watch it if it's still up on Netflix.
Your turn, Alan.
Angelo, I tickled the ivories a little bit while we were Tanglewood.
Tanglewood, yes. Yep.
Tanglewood's
that's it. That's it. Yep.
And you're absolutely right. That is the thing to go. The problem is once I get down on the lawn, I can't get back up, and that's really embarrassing. That's really embarrassing. So I got to bring a chair, and then it's going to break, and it's all kinds of shit. Anyway, very popular stuff that I remember watching that is part of pop culture are the Archies. One of my favorite songs of all time is Sugar Sugar by the Archies.
Oh my God. Sugar Sugar.
And its sister show Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and those were both animated, and they've both been redone by Netflix as live action, and they're on now, and one is Riverdale and one is Sabrina, and they're good. They're really good. I mean, Riverdale's got a huge following. I don't find it as interesting as Sabrina, but if you're looking for something that harkens back in the day, that might be a good thing to check out, because what they've done with the characters, in my opinion, and how they brought them to life as live people, very clever, very well done.
It's like a darker version of
A little darker, yeah.
Believe it or not, the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina was started as a comic book, and I think it had like a 7 or 8 comic book run before they came to the writer and said, we want to make a show based on this comic. And I don't know why I'm thinking about this, but Keith and I did an interview at this place called Cave Comics, and they gave us, I think he gave you a free issue of Sabrina, didn't he?
Yes.
Right, and that's what the show was based off of.
I'm glad we're there. We're on comics because my recommendation happens to be a comic book or a collection of comic books. So while you guys are sending stuff to watch, I'm going to give you something to read. It's a couple of Batman anthologies by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. One is called The Long Halloween, I'm sorry, and the other one's called Dark Victory, is kind of a sequel to The Long Halloween. These are creepy, noir, murder mystery Batman stories that will just spin your head like a top.
Nice.
They're phenomenal. I read them over and over again. I think they're two of the best Batman collections I've ever read, and they're both 1-year runs of the Batman comic put into these. You can find them on Amazon. They're about $15 each, and well worth it. Freaking.
So don't read it.
One more time, Keith? The names were
The Long Halloween and Dark Victory by Jeff Jeph Loeb Loeb
nice.
And Tim Sale, spelled exactly the way it sounds.
And of course, you're not asking us to read the digital copies, right? You want us to read the hard copy.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that's show 5 in the can.
Nice.
Before we go, I'm going to drop a little tease. We're going to start doing giveaways on the show. And we're going to start with one that I found in my basement. It's a Terminator 1 and 2 collector's edition box set with a book in it. And I'll put pictures all over our social media and stuff. So we will take listeners who want it. We'll take you in and we will randomly draw one and we will mail it to you. So watch our social media and our website for our giveaways going forward after this show.
And we'll randomly draw it here and during the show, right? So they
Correct.
They should listen and
And we'll make Alan do it. So when he doesn't pick you, you can go after him.
That's fine.
So before we go, once again, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter at Pizza Pop Culture. Our website is pizzapopculture.com. You can email us, pizzapopculture@gmail.com as well. Remember to subscribe and or contribute to the show so we can make it bigger, better, and more entertaining. And while you're at it and you're into the podcast move, check out our friends at Pinto Comics, Ghost of the Stratosphere, 4:30 movie, Inglorious Trexperts, and the best movies never made. So for Alan, Pete, Angelo, Jude, be me, Shitty Chicken. Till next time. Bye.
Adios.
Bye.
They killed the giggler, man. They killed the giggler! They had no business doing that. None.
I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown.